This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
திவ்யா திவ்யா நோ சவுண்ட். சொல்லுங்கம்மா. நோ சவுண்டுன்னு சொல்லுங்கம்மா. ஹலோ திவ்யா. Divya, Divya
Ma'am,
is not able to hear Divya. No sound. No, you can no.
This conference will now be recorded.
So we are discussing about female reproductive system in human, right? So the female reproductive system consists of a pair of ovaries along with uterine tubes, then uterus, then vagina, then external genitalia, and along with mammary glands. This completes the whole system, right? Whole reproductive system. So female reproductive system is having different functions. During the period of pregnancy, first during the period of conception, right? So during conception, that is the main role, and after that, that conception that leads to pregnancy, that is, there comes the second role. And then the reproductive function. The reproductive system have many functions during the period of pregnancy. In pregnancy period and parturition. Parturition means giving birth. That is the period of parturition. Parturition period also, this works in different ways. So from conception and that whole reproductive, that growth, pregnancy period, then parturition, giving birth, all these times, these reproductive system, female reproductive system works in different way. Okay, so during all this period, that reproductive system works in different way. So the female reproductive system consists of a pair of ovaries along with a pair of oviducts and uterus, then cervix, then vagina, then external genitalia, then mammary glands, right? So all these makes a complete reproductive system. Is it clear? Then in human, that female reproductive system consists of many parts. Here you can see it is having several parts, right? So the first part is ovaries. Ovaries are the first part of female reproductive system. So that ovaries means a pair of glands. You can see here ovary, the pair of glands. In this picture you can see both sides, you can see ovaries, right? It is a pair of glands, and in size and shape, that is like, it is having almost almond shape, unshelled almond. It is having almost unshelled almond shape, and ovaries are found, or these are the female, which is the female gonads, ovaries. From ovary, it is producing ovum, right? So that is the female gonads, and it is around 2 to 4 centimeter, right? That ovary, it's very small, it's 2 to 4 centimeter, and ovaries, they are situated on each side of uterus. You can see uterus here, and on both sides of uterus, ovaries are situated. So ovaries, it is very small, 2 to 4 centimeter, and they are like unshelled almonds. The shape of that ovaries, it's like unshelled almond, and it is a pair of glands. You can see two. It's a pair of glands here. Okay, left side and right side. And ovaries are situated on each side of uterus. On both sides of uterus, you can see ovaries. And here there are a series of ligaments. You can see some ligaments here which is attaching this ovary in their position. Okay, it's not a separate one. It is attached by a series of ligaments that is holding the ovaries in their position. Okay, and the ovaries are connected to uterus. You can see here in this picture, in this diagram, it's very clear that ovaries, it is connected to the uterus by ligaments. Here also you can see the connection very clearly by ligaments, that ovaries are connected to uterus, and the suspensory ligament that is attaching them to the pelvic wall. Which is attaching them to the pelvic wall? Suspensory ligaments. Note down, these are the important points for NEET. You may get all these questions. And suspensory ligaments are attaching them to the pelvic wall. It is actually the uterus is situated in the pelvic region, right? So in the pelvic wall, the suspensory ligaments attaches the ovary, right? And each ovary, it is covered by a thin epithelium. Here ovary, you can see each ovary is covered by a thin epithelium, and that thin epithelium encloses ovarian stroma. Ovarian stroma. Inside that thin epithelium, ovarian stroma is present. Okay. And this ovary produces female sex hormones. That everyone knows, ovary produces female sex hormones or steroid hormones, or otherwise called as ovarian hormones. Ovary produces the female sex hormones or steroid hormones, otherwise it is called as ovarian hormones, right? And it is producing ovum. That is a main or important point. Ovary, that is producing ovum, right? So in this, they are paired, or they are this ovaries are pair of glands, and it is having unshelled almond shape, and ovaries are, they are the female gonads, and the size of the ovary, it is around 2 to 4 centimeter, and it is situated, where it is situated? It is situated on each side of uterus, right? Here you can see on both sides, you can see ovary. And how it is attached? With the help of ligaments. These ligaments are attaching these ovaries to the pelvic wall. And it is connected to uterus also with the help of, see here it is attached to the pelvic wall with the help of ligaments, and with the help of suspension ligaments. Suspension ligaments that is attached to the pelvic wall. Suspension ligaments are attached to the pelvic wall, and that keeps the position of ovaries, right? And each ovary, I said each ovary is covered with a thin layer of cells that is called as epithelium, thin layer of epithelium, and inside that ovarian stroma is present, and ovary produces, what and all ovary is producing? Ovarian hormones or steroid hormones or sex hormones. It is produced by ovary, and ovum is also produced by ovary. Got it? So they are the primary female sex organs. Ovaries are the primary female sex organs, and that produces female gamete. Female gamete, that is ovum. Ovum is produced by ovary. And several steroid hormones. They are producing several steroid hormones also. They are also called as ovarian hormones. And ovaries are located on each side of the lower abdomen. You can see lower abdomen, that part only, that uterus is situated, right? So both sides of uterus, on both sides you can see this ovaries, and each ovary is about 2 to 4 centimeter in length, and it is connected to the pelvic wall and uterus by ligaments. It is connected to pelvic wall and uterus. It is connected to both sides. Here it is, this part is connected to the uterus, and top part it is connected to the pelvic region, right? So on both parts, it is connected with the help of ligaments. And each ovary is covered by a thin epithelium. Each ovary, you can see here, each ovary is covered by a thin epithelium and that encloses ovarian stroma. Inside the epithelium, ovarian stroma is present. And the stroma, it is divided into two zones. This stroma is divided into two zones, a peripheral cortex and an inner medulla. It is divided into peripheral cortex and inner medulla. Okay. Then here you can see that female accessory ducts. We have already told what and all, which and all the parts or accessory ducts are coming first. Ovaries, then accessory ducts. Okay, now we learned about ovary. Next, accessory ducts. We are going to learn about this part, accessory ducts. So the female accessory ducts consists of oviduct. Okay, oviduct or fallopian tubes. Oviduct or fallopian tubes. This part that is called as oviduct or fallopian tubes. This structure you need to learn for your board exam and so many MCQs you will get from this part. Okay, for your NEET exam. So learn it properly. So first we explained about ovary. Next, from this ovum is producing, right? Ovum is getting produced from the ovary. Next, we are going to learn about accessory ducts. So the oviduct, this part, the whole thing, oviduct or fallopian tubes. Then uterus. First part is this oviduct or fallopian tube. Next is uterus or this uterine cavity. And third is vagina. This part, we are going to learn about this whole part in this one. Female accessory ducts. Female accessory ducts that consists of first fallopian tube, then uterine cavity or uterus, and third vagina. Okay, we are going to learn about all these things. So this can include the accessory ducts. The female accessory duct consists of fallopian tube, from here the fallopian tube, then uterine cavity or uterus, then vagina. And the length of that fallopian tube, now we are going to start from the fallopian tube. The length of the fallopian tube is around 10 to 12 centimeters. The fallopian tube, the whole part, this part, it is called as fallopian tube and the length is around 10 to 12 centimeters. Okay, you can guess 10 to 12 centimeters the length. Here in the diagram you can see, and in the diagram, so the uterus here, vagina, this part, and fallopian tube. Okay, don't get confused. This with structure you need to learn. And this fallopian tube starts from the periphery of each ovary. This is the peripheral region of each ovary, right? Here and this side. Okay, so from the peripheral region of each ovary, this fallopian tube is starting. You can see the starting of the fallopian tube. These three together is called as fallopian tube. So the whole part, it is called as fallopian tube. So from the peripheral region of an ovary, that fallopian tube starts. Okay. And where it is ending? It is ending in the uterus. The fallopian tube starts from the peripheral region of ovary and it is ending in the uterus. Okay. So the part of the fallopian tube which is near to ovary, you can see here. This is the ovary and the part of the fallopian tube which is near to ovary is called as infundibulum. That is called as infundibulum. Here the whole thing is the fallopian tube and the part which is near to the ovary. That is called as infundibulum. And this infundibulum, note down infundibulum, these and all important MCQs. So near to ovary, the part of fallopian tube which is near to ovary, that is called as infundibulum, and it is almost funnel shaped. You can see here it is almost like funnel. And At the edge of this infundibulum, you can see at the end of this or at the edge of this, you can see the finger-like, some projections are there here, right? So these are the finger-like projections. They are called as fimbriae. They are called as fimbriae. So the projections at the end of the infundibulum or at this edge of this infundibulum, which are finger-like structures. The finger-like structures at the edge of the infundibulum, it is called as fimbriae. Okay. So after ovulation or at the time of ovulation, this fimbriae collects the ova. From here, ovums are getting produced. So these ovum, it is collected by these finger-like structures called fimbriae. These fimbriae collects the ovum from the ovary. Okay. So at the time of ovulation, this fimbriae collects ovum from this ovary. Got it? So first, near to ovary, you can see finger-like projections. Finger-like projections of infundibulum called fimbriae. And these finger-like part, which is called as fimbriae, don't get confused. This is infundibulum. Infundibulum is the starting part and the projections are called as fimbriae. Okay. And next, this leads to ampulla. Ampulla, which is a wider part of oviduct. This is the oviduct. So the wider part of oviduct is called as ampulla. Here, this is the ampulla. This starting is infundibulum, then infundibulum leads to ampulla. Ampulla is the wider part of oviduct. And in anatomical studies, a sac-like enlargement of canal or some duct, that is mentioned as ampulla. Ampulla means just wider part or sac-like part, which is the sac-like part of a duct or canal. Such things are called as ampulla in anatomical studies. Okay. And in Latin word, these words are almost from Greek or Latin. Okay. So in Latin, ampulla means a flask-shaped structure. Okay. The ampulla, actually this ampulla was a flask-shaped structure which is used in Rome. In ancient Rome, they were using a flask-shaped structure called ampulla. They were using it to hold this perfume or such kind of things, wine, perfume, such things and all. So that kind of a flask-shaped appearance or a sac-like appearance is there, something to hold. Okay, so such kind of appearance is there. That's why they have given this name called ampulla. Okay, and the ampulla leads to isthmus. Don't read it as isthmus and all. It's isthmus. Okay, isthmus. That much only. And this joins. This isthmus leads to uterus. Here it is joining to uterus. This is the uterine cavity or uterus. So to uterus, this isthmus is leading to uterus. It is joining with uterus. Right? So the starting part, it is called as infundibulum. Infundibulum is having projections, finger-like projections called fimbriae. And from fimbriae, it is leading to a wider part, fimbriae, then comes the infundibulum. Then this infundibulum leads to a wider part compared to that. And that part is called as ampulla. Okay. And ampulla leads to isthmus. Isthmus is a narrow part. It is narrow part of this lumen. Isthmus is a narrow lumen. Okay. Compared to ampulla, this is narrow. And this isthmus joins with uterus. Okay. This is joining with uterus. You can see here. So the whole part, this isthmus, ampulla and an infundibulum. These are the parts of fallopian tube. Starting part is infundibulum, then ampulla, then comes isthmus. Isthmus is the joining part of infundibulum that joins with the uterus or uterine cavity. And infundibulum, first infundibulum, it is wider, then comes ampulla with ampulla that is having, compared to that, width is reduced, and when it is moving to isthmus, it's becoming little more narrow. So the narrow part From all these, you can select the narrow part, which is isthmus. Okay. And finally, that joins to uterus. Got it? So the oviduct or fallopian tube, uterus, and vagina, these constitute the female accessory ducts. Okay. Each fallopian tube is around 10 to 12 centimeter long and extends from the periphery of each ovary to uterus. And the part which is closer to the ovary, it is a funnel shape. You can see here, it is a funnel shaped infundibulum, and the edges of the infundibulum possess finger-like projections that are called as fimbriae. And this helps, fimbriae helps in the collection of ovum during ovulation. Okay, and the infundibulum leads to a wider part. This leads to a wider part of the oviduct, that is called as ampulla, and the last part of the oviduct, it is isthmus, and it is a narrow lumen, and this narrow lumen joins with uterus. Got it? Next, see, uterus, it is also called as womb, and it is a single structure, right? Womb, it is a single structure. So uterus is having an inverted pear shape. You can see here, uterus, it is having an inverted structure, inverted pear shape. Okay, and we have already told that it is attached to the pelvic wall. Uterus is attached to the pelvic wall with the help of supporting ligaments. Here you can say this is attached to the pelvic wall with supporting ligaments. Okay, so uterus or uterine cavity, you can see here, this uterine cavity that opens to vagina. So this is the vaginal part. So this uterine cavity is opening to the vagina, and this is opening through a narrow cervix, right? This is opening to the vagina through a narrow cervix. You can see here the narrow cervix, and the cavity of that cervix, it is called as cervical canal. So in the structure, we have learned about these parts. This is ovary, then fallopian tube. Now we are coming to uterus. Uterus or uterine cavity. So this uterine cavity is opening to vagina through a narrow cervix, and that cavity, particular cavity, is called as cervical canal. You can see here the cervical canal. Okay. And this cervical canal and vagina, you can see here the cervical canal and vagina, that forms the birth canal. Okay. The uterus is having a narrow, the uterine cavity, it is opening to vagina through a narrow cervical canal, and the cervical canal and vagina, these together forms the birth canal. So cervical canal plus vagina, it is working as the birth canal. Note down, that is the birth canal. Cervical canal and vagina together work as they are working together to form the birth canal. Okay, and uterus, next we are learning about the 3-layered wall of uterus. Uterus is having 3-layered wall, and it consists of 3 layers of tissues and the outer membrane. Here you can see the outer membrane, which is very thin. It is called as perimetrium. You can see here perimetrium. The outer wall, the thin wall, is called as perimetrium. And middle layer of uterus, you can see the middle part, middle layer of this wall, it is called as myometrium. First one is perimetrium, then myometrium, and the inner wall. This myometrium is thick, okay, thick, and it consists of smooth muscles. Myometrium is thick. Here you can see, compared to perimetrium is a thin layer. And myometrium, it is the middle layer and it is somewhat thick. This much portion you can see, the myometrium, the middle portion, and myometrium is thick and it is having a layer of smooth muscles. Myometrium is having layer of smooth muscles. And inner wall you can see the endometrium. This is the endometrium. And that layer, which is a glandular layer. That means it is having some glands or the products of glands. Okay, got it? So inner wall is called as endometrium. Endometrium is a glandular layer. Glandular layer means that is related to some glands or it is having some glandular products or products of some glands. So the outer wall is perimetrium, inner wall, middle layer is myometrium. Myometrium is thick and smooth muscle. Okay, myometrium is thick and it's with smooth muscle. And the inner layer, it is called as endometrium. Endometrium is the glandular layer. Endometrium is the glandular layer in three walls, in three layers of this wall. Okay, so the glandular layer is the endometrium. And this is the innermost layer. Which is the innermost layer? Endometrium is the innermost layer of uterus and the inner lining of uterine cavity. This is not only the innermost layer of uterus, you can see this is giving a lining to the uterine cavity. This is the uterine cavity, so that layer gives a lining to the uterine cavity. You can see the folding like layer. Okay, that forms a lining to the uterine cavity. And during this menstrual cycle, this endometrium undergoes some cyclic changes. Okay, we are discussing about the menstrual cycle later. So there is a part like menstrual cycle we need to discuss in this chapter only. So that we will discuss later. So during the menstrual cycle, this endometrium, there some changes are happening in the endometrium. Endometrium will undergo cyclic changes. Okay. And the middle layer, this myometrium, that exhibits some contraction during the delivery or during the birth of a baby. That myometrium is thick and it is having smooth muscles, right? So that myometrium exhibits some kind of contraction during the birth of a baby. Okay. So the uterus, you can see uterus, it is single and it is also called as womb. And the shape of the uterus is like a inverted pear. It is having an inverted pear shape and that is supported by ligaments and attached to the pelvic wall. With the help of ligaments, it is attached to the pelvic wall. And uterus opens to vagina through a narrow cervix. And the cavity of that cervix is called as cervical canal. And the cervical canal plus vagina or the cervical canal along with vagina, that forms the birth canal. During delivery, that forms the birth canal. And when the wall of uterus, it is having three layers of tissues. The external layer, the outer layer is called as perimetrium and middle layer is called as myometrium. This myometrium consists of smooth muscles and it is the thick layer. Okay, and inner layer, endometrium. Inner layer is called as endometrium and it is a glandular layer and that forms a lining to the uterine cavity. Okay, the endometrium, it will undergo cyclic changes during menstrual period or menstrual cycle. And the myometrium, that shows strong contraction during the birth of a baby. Got it? Next, we have learned that the female reproductive system consists of a pair of ovaries, then oviduct, next uterus. We discussed about the ovaries, then we discussed about oviduct, fallopian tube and all those things. Next, we discussed about uterus and cervix we learned. Then we learned about vagina. And next comes external genitalia, the external part, external genital part. So the last one is external genitalia. And this external genitalia, it is having different parts. At top you can see mons pubis. Mons pubis, you can see the top part, mons pubis. Then labia majora, you can see labia majora, this part, the labia majora. Then the third, next to labia majora, you can see labia minora. This is labia majora and this is labia minora. Then Hymen. Hymen is a thin fleshy tissue. Okay. Hymen, here inside you can see a thin fleshy tissue that is located at the opening of vagina. In the vaginal opening, you can see a thin fleshy tissue that is called as hymen. And next to clitoris, next is clitoris. Clitoris, you can see these are the parts of external genitalia. You can see here the clitoris. So which are the parts? The female external genitalia include mons pubis, you can see here, and labia majora. Labia majora is labia majora, this part, and labia minora you can see here. Then comes hymen. Hymen is a thin tissue, thin fleshy tissue. Then clitoris. Clitoris you can see here, this one. Okay, these are the female external genitalia parts. Okay. Next, in female external genitalia, the top part, the mons pubis is covered by skin. You can see here, mons pubis, it is covered by skin, and pubic hair. Hair growth also will be there. Pubic hair will be present. Mons pubis is covered with skin and pubic hair. This part, okay, mons pubis, and it's having fatty tissue. This mons pubis is having fatty tissue, a cushion-like fatty tissue, and then labia majora. You can see labia majora. Sorry, labia majora. Here, labia majora you can see, which is labia majora. This part is called as labia majora. Okay, this is the labia majora, and that is also a fleshy fold of tissue. Fleshy fold of tissue. This labia majora is also fleshy fold of tissue, and labia majora that extends from mons pubis and that surrounds the opening of vagina. You can see this labia majora. This part, this fleshy, thick fleshy part, this surrounds the opening of vagina. Labia majora is surrounding the opening of vagina. This vaginal opening is surrounded by labia majora, and that extends, that is starting from the mons pubis and surrounding the vagina. Okay. And next, under labia majora, labia minora. You can see labia minora. Which one is labia minora? This part is called as labia minora. Okay. And labia minora, these are pair of folds. You can see pair of folds of tissue. Pair of folds of tissue, that is labia minora. Labia majora that covers whole, that surrounds whole this vaginal opening. It is surrounding the vaginal opening, but labia minora is next to this labia majora, or under labia majora you can see labia minora. And it's labia minora, they are paired folds. You can see here paired folds on both sides. You can see paired folds of tissue. And next comes hymen. Next we said about hymen, right? And hymen is the membrane that covers the opening of vagina. Okay, it is a partial covering. Hymen is a partial covering which covers the opening of vagina. Hymen covers the opening of vagina. It is covering partially the opening of vagina. And here you can see the clitoris. Clitoris you can see here, the top. Okay, clitoris is a tiny structure. It is a very small or tiny structure, and it is a finger-like small projection, a small finger-like projection that is called as clitoris. Okay, and this comes at the upper junction of two labia minora. See here, two labia minora. This is, sorry, This is for one and this is another fold. These two labia minora joins, and at that junction, a small finger-like projection you can see. This is called as clitoris, and this clitoris is present above the urethral opening. Above the urethral opening, this is the urethral opening, and above the urethral opening only this clitoris is present. Clear? So mons pubis, it is a cushion of fatty tissue covered by skin and pubic hair, right? And labia majora, they are fleshy folds of tissue, and that extends down from mons pubis, and it is surrounding vaginal opening, right? And labia minora, they are paired folds. You can see the paired folds of tissue under labia majora. Labia majora is this one. Under labia majora, labia minora is present. And the opening of vagina, it is covered by, or partially it is covered by a membrane called hymen. And clitoris. Clitoris is a tiny finger-like projection that lies at the upper junction of two labia minora and above the urethral opening. It is above the urethral opening. Okay, this is the urethral opening and it is above, clitoris is above the urethral opening. And just now we said hymen. Hymen is the part of external genitalia, right? We said about hymen. You can see here hymen, that is the part of external genitalia. And during first coitus or first sexual intercourse, the hymen is often get torn, right? Hymen is a partial covering, right? So during the first intercourse or first coitus, the hymen is get torn normally, okay? And not only during that first intercourse, that can be broken or that can be injured in many ways, okay? So it can be torn by a sudden fall. If you're suddenly falling somewhere, that also may cause, or that also may damage that hymen. Or jolts. Jolt means a sudden rough push or a shake. That also may damage this hymen. That leads to hymen damage. And sports participation, like sports activities like horse riding, cycling and all, this also may cause damage to the hymen. Like which gives more pressure, the sports activities or the activities which gives more pressure to this abdominal or the pelvic region, that may cause, all these activities may cause damage to the hymen. And insertion of a vaginal tampon. Insertion of vaginal tampon. Okay, what is vaginal tampon? Vaginal tampons are nothing. That is a method of absorbing menstrual flow during periods. So during periods, there are several methods to absorb this vaginal, this menstrual flow. There are several methods to absorb the menstrual flow during the periods. So we can use sanitary napkins and we can use tampons. What are they? They are the method of absorbing menstrual flow during periods. So tampons, they are designed in such a way that they can be inserted into vagina. Normally, sanitary napkins and all we can use external, that they are the external methods. So tampons, they are designed in such a way that they can be inserted into vagina. And the tampons, they are of different types. Some are like use and throw, just for single use, and some can be reused. Okay, these tampons sometimes they are of different types, like use and throw types are there, then reusable types are there. But reusable types or reusable ones that are not used in proper way means that can cause many health issues like infections and serious health problems. Okay. So it's not like a sanitary napkin or sanitary pad which we can use externally. Okay, so the tampons can be placed internally or inside vaginal canal. Got it? So in some ladies, like after first intercourse or after coitus also, this hymen persists. It may not get damaged. It will be there. It will persist. Okay. So the procedure or the that presence or absence of hymen, it is, we cannot say that as, or we cannot take it as an indicator of virginity or the sexual experience. We can't say that if it is getting damaged by any other sports activities or many other activities I said, due to that also this hymen may get damaged. So we can't say that hymen is the presence or absence of hymen, that is an indicator of virginity. We can't say that. Okay. So hymen is often torn during first coitus or first intercourse, and that can also be broken by sudden fall or insertion of vaginal tampon, then active participation of some sports like horseback riding, then cycling. All these activities, sports activities, may lead to the damage of hymen. And in some ladies, hymen persists after intercourse or after coitus also. So the presence or absence of hymen, it is not a reliable indicator. We can't rely on that. We can't believe that hymen, presence or absence of hymen, it is an believable indicator of virginity or a sexual experience. Okay. And in the starting of this topic, we said that female reproductive system, we said the part of reproductive system along with a pair of mammary gland. All these supports ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, birth and childcare, right? We told like this only. So along with the support of mammary gland only, reproductive system will become complete, right? During the birth of a baby, mammary gland is providing so much of support, right? So the next topic which we are going to discuss is mammary glands. Okay. So the mammary glands, here you can see mammary glands, they are a paired structure. This is paired structure, right? And they are also called as breasts, right? Breasts are paired structures, and breasts are very important structures, right? For lactation, it is very important. And these breasts undergo different type of changes, several changes for during the lactation period or during the menstrual period, and all several changes are happening. And during pregnancy period, during all this period, that mammary gland or the breast, it will undergo different changes. Okay. So breast or mammary glands, it is a hemispherical projection. You can see here, it's a hemispherical projection. And this breast contains glandular tissues. Glandular tissue means the presence of glands or their products, okay, will be there in that tissues. And variable amount of fats. Okay, here you can see the fat deposition or fat pad that is present in mammary glands. And this breast development that begins under the influence of estrogen and progesterone. Note down, under the influence of estrogen and progesterone, this breast development starts. Up to a certain age, in females, up to a certain age, there won't be any development in the mammary glands. Okay, it will be normal only. There won't be any changes in the body or the breast, the development of breast. There won't be any difference. Okay, but after attaining that maturity or after reaching a particular age, when the estrogen and progesterone production and all starts, in that age, this breast development also starts. Okay, and the glandular tissue of breast, the glandular tissue of breast divides into 15 to 20 mammary lobes. Okay, here you can see In this structure, you can see that pink color, this portion, mammary lobe. Here I have marked as lobe, that is mammary lobes. So in glandular tissue, that divides into 50 to 20 mammary lobes, small lobes or locules it is. Okay. And these mammary lobes, here you can see, these mammary lobes, they have clusters of cells. Here you can see the clustered cells of mammary lobes. And these cells are called as alveoli. Alveoli. This is the cross section of alveoli. You can see each cluster of cell. These cluster of cell, in that each one is called as, these cells are called as alveoli. These are the cluster of alveoli. Right. And in this diagram, you can see the cross section. Here you can see the cross section of alveoli. And inside you can see secretory cells also. Okay, these are the secretory cells. In the cross section of alveoli, you can see secretory cells. And here, thick myoepithelial cells next to secretory cells. These are the secretory cells. In the cross section of alveoli, you can see secretory cells, then myoepithelial cells, and above that, contractile unit. With what and all you can see, secretory cells, then myoepithelial cells, and contractile unit. Okay. And the cells of these alveoli, you can see the cells of alveoli. These cells will secrete milk. And this milk is stored in the cavities, or otherwise they are called as lumens of alveoli. You can see lumens of alveoli. In that, milk is getting stored. Okay. And then these alveoli, that opens into mammary tubules. Mammary tubules. That alveoli is opening to mammary tubules. And that tubules, each lobe joined to form a mammary duct. In this, each lobe is joining to form a mammary duct. Here you can see this duct. From each lobe, it is joining to form a mammary duct. Mammary duct or lactiferous duct. Here it is mentioned as mammary duct or lactiferous duct. From all these lobes, it is joining and forming a lactiferous duct or mammary duct. And several mammary ducts, they are joining to form a wider mammary ampulla. This is the mammary ampulla. Mammary ampulla is nothing but several lactiferous ducts joined to form a wider mammary ampulla. Right. First, the small alveoli. From alveoli, it is coming to lobes, and then to this lactiferous duct or mammary duct. Then that several mammary ducts are joining to form lactiferous sinus or lactiferous. This is the lactiferous sinus or ampulla. Then through this lactiferous duct, you can see the lactiferous duct, milk is sucked out. Through this, milk is sucked out. Here it is reaching and the milk is sucked out through this one. Okay. So, breast or mammary glands, they are paired structure. They are also called as breast, and they contain glandular tissue. So many glands are present and variable amount of fat. Fat deposition also, you can see the presence of fat here. And the glandular tissue is dividing into 15 to 20 mammary lobes. You can see mammary lobes, 15 to 20 mammary lobes, and that mammary lobes, that containing clusters of cells, and these cells are called as alveoli. And the cells of alveoli secrete milk, and this milk is stored in the lumen, in the cavities of alveoli. In the lumen of alveoli or cavities of alveoli, and this alveoli opens to mammary tubules. Alveoli, it is opening to mammary tubules, and tubules of each lobe, From each lobe, that tubules are joining to form a mammary duct, right? It is forming a mammary duct. And these several mammary ducts, so many mammary ducts are connecting together to form ampulla, and this is connected to lactiferous duct. Okay, this is connected to lactiferous duct, and through lactiferous duct, milk is sucked out. Through which one? Through lactiferous duct, that milk is sucked out. Okay. And then what are the functions of this mammary glands? Synthesis, secretion, and ejection of milk. That are the function. These are the function of mammary glands. So lactation. Lactation is related to childbirth, right? During the birth of the child, lactation starts. And lactation is related to childbirth. The production of milk, it is stimulated by the hormones, mainly prolactin. Okay, prolactin, which is the hormone which is related to the production of milk. Note down, prolactin is related to milk production or the milk production. The production of milk is stimulated by the hormone prolactin. Prolactin along with progesterone and estrogen. Along with progesterone and estrogen, both are involved. This progesterone and estrogen, these both are involved in the milk production, but the main hormone is prolactin. And ejection of milk, it is stimulated by oxytocin. Milk ejection is stimulated by oxytocin. Note down, prolactin, it is a main hormone for milk production, but milk ejection is stimulated by oxytocin. And mammary glands, they'll produce nutritive fluid that is called as milk. The production of mammary gland, which is a nutritive fluid, that is called as milk, and this is mainly for the nourishment of baby or the young ones, right? The baby or the young one is using it as a source of food. And after birth, up to some months, the young ones are feeded only this milk, and that gives the nourishment and health, right? And the milk, mainly how that baby or the young one is getting nourishment, because milk consists of mainly fat, then milk protein. Which milk protein is present in that? Casein. The milk protein casein is present. Then milk sugar, lactose, milk sugar. Lactose is the milk sugar that is also present in milk. And then mineral salts like sodium, calcium, potassium, phosphorus, all these are available from that milk. And that milk consists of small amount of vitamins also, right? Milk consists of vitamins also. So that milk protein, casein, then milk sugar, lactose, then minerals like sodium, potassium, phosphorus, calcium, all these along with vitamins, it is present in this milk. So the mammary glands of female, it will undergo some changes during pregnancy, and during the period of pregnancy it will undergo changes, and it will start the preparations to produce milk, or for the milk production during the pregnancy period. These mammary glands are getting prepared, right? And by the end of that pregnancy or after the birth of the young one, milk production starts, right? At the end of pregnancy, this milk production starts, and that is called as lactation. That is called as lactation. And this helps that mother to feed the newborn, right? And for the growth and health of that baby, lactation is best way. That's why doctors are suggesting breastfeeding, because it is rich source of all kind of nutrients, right? That is called as lactation. Okay. Got it? Do you have any doubt in this? Up to this it's clear? You want me to repeat any point or any?
Yes, ma'am.
It's clear.
Yes, ma'am. I'm clear.
Okay. Okay. The next class we will learn about gametogenesis. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
We'll see you in the next class. Bye.